Half of all the gold in the world right now is controlled by criminals. And I'm not talking about some shady investment firms or tax evaders. I'm talking about actual gangs, cartels, and criminal organizations that would rather shoot you than look at you. The gold ring on your finger, there's a decent chance it funded terrorism or was pulled from a mine by someone who's basically a slave. And the craziest part? The people who are supposed to stop this are actually helping it happen. Right now, while you're watching this video, somewhere in the world, armed men are forcing people into mines at gunpoint. Children as young as 6 are digging through toxic mud looking for specks of gold. Drug cartels are washing their money through golder refineries. And all of this gold ends up in the same place. Your jewelry, your phone, your investments. The global gold supply chain is one of the most corrupt systems on earth, and almost nobody talks about it. We're going to change that right now, because what I'm about to show you is going to make you look at gold completely differently. Let's start with a simple question. Where does gold come from? You probably think it comes from big mining companies with massive operations, safety regulations, and all that corporate stuff. And yes, some of it does. Companies like Barrick Gold and Newmont mine gold in places like Nevada, Australia, and Canada. These are legitimate operations. They follow laws, pay taxes, have environmental standards. But here's what they don't tell you. A massive amount of the world's gold doesn't come from these companies at all. It comes from something called artisanal and small-scale mining. That's the official term. But what it really means is informal, unregulated mining operations, often in developing countries, where people dig for gold with hand tools, no safety equipment, and no legal oversight. And this is where things get dark really fast. Estimates vary, but somewhere between 15 to 20% of all gold mined globally comes from these artisanal mines. That's roughly 500 to 600 tons of gold every year. To put that in perspective, that's worth about $30 to $35 billion annually. That's a lot of money. And where there's that much money with no regulation, criminals show up. Let's talk about what these artisanal mines actually look like. In countries like Peru, Colombia, Ghana, Sudan, and the Philippines, there are thousands of these small mining operations. Some are just poor people trying to make a living. They dig holes, pan for gold in rivers, use basic tools. It's dangerous work, but it's their choice. But many of these mines aren't run by poor people trying to survive. They're controlled by criminal gangs. These gangs use violence to take over mining areas. They force local people to work for almost nothing. They bring in workers from other regions and trap them with debt. You take a loan to pay for your travel and equipment, and suddenly you owe the gang more money than you can ever pay back. So you're stuck working in their mine until you disappear or escape. This is modern slavery. And it's happening right now, at a massive scale, in the gold industry. The working conditions in these illegal mines are horrific. There's no safety equipment. Tunnels collapse regularly, burying workers alive. The gangs don't care. There are always more desperate people they can force to work. Many of these mines use mercury to extract gold from ore. Mercury is incredibly toxic. It causes brain damage, kidney failure, birth defects. The workers handle it with their bare hands. They breathe in the fumes. They pour it into rivers where it poisons the water supply for entire communities. The environmental damage from illegal gold mining is catastrophic. In the Amazon rainforest, illegal gold mining has destroyed thousands of square miles of forest. Satellite images show huge areas of the jungle that are just gone, replaced by muddy pits and toxic waste. Rivers that used to be clear are now orange and brown from mercury and sediment. Fish vanishing. Animals disappearing. Indigenous communities that have lived in these areas for thousands of years are being poisoned and forced out of their homes. And the gangs running these operations don't care because they'll make millions of dollars and then move to the next area. But it gets worse. The criminal gangs running these mines aren't just local thugs. They're often connected to much larger criminal organizations. Drug cartels, terrorist groups, organized crime syndicates. For these groups, gold is the perfect product. It's valuable, easy to transport, and easy to hide. If you're a drug cartel in Colombia, you have a problem. You're making millions of dollars from cocaine, but that money is dirty. Banks won't touch it. Governments are looking for it. You need to clean it somehow. So what do? You buy illegal gold. You pay cash for gold that was mined illegally. Then you smuggle that gold to a refinery, sell it as legitimate gold, and boom, your drug money is now clean. Gold is used by terrorist groups too. In places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo, armed groups control gold mines and use the money to buy weapons. ISIS use gold smuggling to fund their operations. Al-Shabaab in Somalia has been linked to illegal gold mining. Gold helps these groups survive and grow because it's so easy to move across borders and sell. Let me give you a specific example. In Venezuela, the government basically collapsed. The economy is destroyed, the currency is worthless, so criminal gangs moved into the southern part of the country where there are gold deposits. These aren't small operations. We're talking about thousands of armed gang members controlling entire regions. They've built their own airports to fly the gold out. They've killed hundreds of people, maybe thousands, fighting over control of mines. The Venezuelan military is supposed to stop this, but instead many military officers are working with the gangs. They provide protection in exchange for a cut of the profits. High-ranking government officials are involved too. They take bribes to look the other way. Some of them are directly profiting from the illegal gold trade. This gold gets smuggled to neighboring countries like Colombia or Guyana. From there, it goes to refineries in places like Miami, Switzerland, or Dubai. Once it's refined, there's no way to tell where it came from. It looks exactly like legal gold. It gets sold to jewelry companies, electronics manufacturers, investors. Nobody knows it was mined by slaves and sold by gangs and terrorists. This is the key to the whole criminal gold system. Once gold is refined, it's impossible to trace where it came from. Gold doesn't have a signature or a fingerprint. A gold bar from a legal mine in Canada looks exactly the same as a gold bar from an illegal mine in the Congo. This is why criminals love gold. You can take dirty gold, refine it, and suddenly it's clean. The refinery gives you paperwork saying this is legitimate gold. And then you can sell it anywhere in the world, no questions asked. Now let's talk about the refineries, because this is where things get really interesting. There are only a handful of major gold refineries in the world. Most gold goes through refineries in Switzerland, the United Arab Emirates, the United States, and a few other countries. These refineries are supposed to check where their gold comes from. They're supposed to make sure it's not illegal gold, not conflict gold, not blood gold. There are international standards. The main one is called the London Bullion Market Association Good Delivery List. If a refinery is on this list, it means they've been approved as following proper standards. They're supposed to verify their supply chain, know their suppliers, and reject any gold that might be illegal. Sounds good, right? Except it doesn't work. Investigations by journalists and human rights organizations have repeatedly shown that refineries on the Good Delivery List have been buying illegal gold for years. In 2019, a major investigation found that a Swiss refinery had been buying gold from a convicted gold smuggler in the UAE. The smuggler was bringing in gold from Africa, some of it clearly from conflict zones and illegal mines. The Swiss refinery knew this guy's background was sketchy, but kept buying from him anyway. When this became public, the refinery claimed they didn't know. But come on, they're supposed to verify their suppliers. That's literally their job. Another case involved refineries in Miami. These refineries were buying gold from South America, particularly from Peru and Colombia. Much of this gold was coming from illegal mines controlled by gangs. The refineries had to know something was wrong. The sellers couldn't provide proper documentation, the amounts didn't match up with legal mining production, but the refineries didn't ask too many questions because they were making money. Here's the thing. For refineries, asking too many questions is bad for business. If they're too strict about checking where gold comes from, their suppliers will just go to a different refinery that's less strict. It's a race to the bottom. The refineries that are willing to be a little bit dirty can buy gold cheaper and make more profit. So even the ones that want to be legitimate feel pressure to bend the rules. The UAE, particularly Dubai, has become a major hub for dirty gold. Dubai has several gold refineries and a massive gold trading market. Gold comes into Dubai from all over Africa and Asia. A lot of it is smuggled. The UAE has relatively weak regulations compared to Europe or the US. Refineries there don't ask as many questions. So criminals smuggle gold to Dubai, get it refined there, and then it enters the legitimate global market. A 2019 investigation estimated that billions of dollars worth of illegal African gold was being smuggled through the UAE every year. We're talking about gold from conflict zones, gold mined by children, gold controlled by terrorist groups. And it's all getting refined in Dubai and sold as legitimate. The UAE government has made some efforts to crack down on this, but it's not nearly enough. There's too much money involved and too many people are getting rich from turning a blind eye. So we've got illegal mines controlled by gangs, gold being used to fund terrorism and launder drug money, and refineries that are either knowingly or willingly buying this dirty gold. But the story doesn't end there, because after the refineries, the gold goes to manufacturers and retailers, the people who make the jewelry you buy, the companies that make your phone and computer, the investment firms that sell gold bars and coins. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of them have no idea if their gold is clean or not. Or maybe they know but don't want to admit it. Now let's talk about jewelry. The jewelry industry uses a huge amount of gold. Your wedding ring, your necklace, your earrings, they're probably gold. The jewelry companies buy their gold from suppliers who buy it from refineries. The jewelry companies will tell you they have policies against conflict gold. They'll say they only source from responsible suppliers. But the reality is that most of them can't actually trace their gold back to the mine. They trust their suppliers, who trust the refineries, who are supposed to trust their sources. But as we've seen, that system is broken. There have been multiple investigations that found gold in jewelry stores that was likely from illegal sources. The jewelry companies always act shocked and promise to do better. But the fundamental problem doesn't change. Once gold is refined, you can't tell where it came from. The electronics industry is another huge consumer of gold. A small amount of gold is used in basically every phone, computer, and electronic device. The connections, the circuits, they use gold because it conducts electricity really well and doesn't corrode. Tech companies like Apple, Samsung, and others buy gold from suppliers. They have codes of conduct on policies about responsible sourcing. But again, they can't actually guarantee their gold is clean. The supply chain is too complex and too opaque. Some of the gold in your iPhone might have been mined by a child in a toxic pit in Ghana. You'd never know. And then there's investment gold. Gold bars, gold coins, gold ETFs. When you invest in gold, you're buying into the same system. The gold in those bars could be from anywhere. Some of it could easily be dirty gold that was laundered through a refinery. Investment firms will tell you their gold is from responsible sources. But unless they can trace every single ounce back to a specific legal mine, which they can't, they're just guessing. Now let's get to the really crazy part, the part that makes this whole system possible. Governments and law enforcement know this is happening. They know that criminal gangs control a huge chunk of the gold supply. They know refineries are buying illegal gold. They know gold is being used to fund terrorism and launder money. And they're not doing enough to stop it. Why? Because gold is complicated. It crosses borders. It involves multiple countries with different laws and different levels of corruption. A gang might mine gold illegally in Peru, smuggle it to Colombia, fly it to Panama, ship it to Dubai, refine it there, and then sell it to a company in New York. Which government is responsible for stopping that? All of them and none of them. It's a coordination nightmare. Plus, there's not a lot of political pressure to fix this. The average person doesn't know or care that their gold might be funding terrorism. Jewelry companies and electronics manufacturers don't want to admit there's a problem because it's bad for business. And some governments, especially in developing countries, are corrupt. Officials are taking bribes to let illegal mining continue. In some countries, the government itself is involved in illegal gold mining. So there's no incentive to crack down. There have been some efforts to address the problem. The OECD has guidelines for responsible mineral sourcing. The Dodd-Frank Act in the US requires companies to report if their products contain conflict minerals, including gold. The EU has similar regulations, but these laws are weak and full of loopholes. Companies just have to say they tried to check their supply chain. If they find out their gold is dirty after the fact, well, oops, we'll do better next time. There's no real penalty. And as long as refineries can claim they didn't know the gold was illegal, they face almost no consequences. Some organizations are trying to create better systems. There are blockchain initiatives to track gold from mine to consumer. There are certification programs for artisanal miners. But these are tiny compared to the scale of the problem. The vast majority of the world's gold supply chain is still a black box. So what's the solution? Honestly, it's not simple. You'd need a complete overhaul of how gold is tracked and traded globally. You'd need strict international regulations that every country actually enforces. You'd need refineries to be held accountable if they buy illegal gold. You'd need massive investments in legitimate small-scale mining so that poor people can mine gold safely and legally instead of being exploited by gangs. You'd need to crack down on the corruption that allows this system to exist. That means going after the military officers, government officials, and business executives who profit from illegal gold, and you'd need consumers to care. As long as people buy gold jewelry without asking where it came from, as long as we're willing to ignore the problem, nothing will change. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think any of this is going to happen anytime soon. There's too much money involved. The criminal gangs are making billions. The refineries are making money. The jewelry and electronics companies are making money. Even some governments are making money. Who's going to voluntarily give that up? This is how half of the world's gold ends up controlled by criminals. Not because there's some evil mastermind running the whole thing, but because the system is designed in a way that makes it really easy for criminals to operate and really hard to stop them. Gold is valuable, portable, and untraceable once it's refined. That makes it the perfect commodity for criminals. And the legitimate gold industry has built a system that relies on not asking too many questions. So where does that leave you? Should you stop buying gold? Should you throw away your jewelry? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will say this. The next time you see a gold ring or a gold necklace, think about where it might have come from. Think about the possibility that it was mined by someone who was forced to work at gunpoint. Think about the chance that the money from that gold went to fund a terrorist group or a drug cartel. The gold industry doesn't want you to think about these things. They want you to see gold as beautiful, pure, valuable, and it is those things, but it's also bloody. Here's something else to think about. This isn't just about gold. The same problems exist with other minerals. Diamonds, cobalt, tantalum, tin. A lot of the minerals in your electronics come from conflict zones or illegal mines. The difference is that gold is the biggest and most valuable. It's the one where criminals have the most control. And if we can't fix the gold supply chain, what hope do we have for these other minerals? The uncomfortable truth is that the modern global economy is built on supply chains that we don't fully understand and aren't fully control. We like to think that everything we buy is made ethically, that companies are responsible, that governments are protecting us. But when you dig into it, literally and figuratively, you find out that a lot of what we consume is connected to exploitation, crime, and corruption. We just don't see it because it happens far away, in countries we've never heard of, in places we'll never visit. Gold is just one example, but it's a really clear example of how broken the system is. So let me bring this back to the big picture. Why does this matter? Beyond the obvious moral problems of slavery and funding terrorism, why should you care about criminal gangs controlling half the world's gold? Because it shows how global crime really works in the 21st century. These aren't guys in dark alleys selling stolen watches. These are sophisticated international operations that move billions of dollars across continents, corrupt governments, and infiltrate legitimate businesses. The line between legal and illegal gets really blurry. And gold is the perfect tool for this, because everyone wants it. Banks want it, investors want it, jewelry companies want it, electronics manufacturers need it. So there's always demand, always someone willing to buy, always a way to move the product. This is why criminal organizations are so powerful. They've figured out how to plug into the legitimate economy. They're not operating in the shadows anymore. They're operating in plain sight, using the same refineries and supply chains as everyone else. And the system is designed in a way that makes it almost impossible to tell the difference between legal gold and illegal gold. If you learn one thing from this video, it should be this. The stuff we buy, the things we value, they often have dark stories behind them. Stories we don't hear because they're not profitable to tell. The gold industry would rather you think about weddings and luxury and investment value. They don't want you thinking about slaves and terrorists and poison rivers. But now you know. You know that when someone says half of all gold is controlled by criminals, that's not an exaggeration. That's a conservative estimate. You know that the refineries, the companies, and the governments that are supposed to prevent this are failing. And you know that every time you buy something with gold in it, there's a real chance that gold has blood on it. What you do with that information is up to you. Maybe you decide to ask more questions about where your gold comes from. Maybe you support organizations that are trying to create ethical gold supply chains. Maybe you just think twice before buying that gold necklace, or maybe you decide you don't care. And look, I get it. We all make compromises. We all buy stuff that probably has ethical problems somewhere in the supply chain. It's almost impossible to live in the modern world without doing that. But at least now you know. You can't say you weren't aware. So here's what I want you to remember. Gold is beautiful. Gold is valuable. Gold has been treasured by humans for thousands of years. But gold is also bloody. It's connected to some of the worst crimes happening in the world right now. And the system that's supposed to keep dirty gold out of the market is broken, corrupted, or simply not trying hard enough. Half of all gold is controlled by criminals. That's the reality. And until we decide to do something about it, that's the reality we'll continue to live with. Hit subscribe if this made you see gold differently.